Hey guys, hopefully everyone is doing well. Our today's target to have an understanding about factory overhead variance. I'm just considering that this is very first lecture related to this topic, and what I am hopeful is the students or the listeners, they do not know anything about that. We will start to understand this concept with the scratch. Even somebody had heard this name for the very first time, it can be easy, it can be a comfortable situation for the listener to understand the topic. When you will see, we have three different words written over here. You can see the first word is factory, and then overhead, and then variance. The first word, why we are using factory, for that purpose we'll understand the basic concept. The very first time when you heard about accounting, you have heard only one word, and that was accounting. And you usually know we learn how to record transaction in under accounting. It's a subject. We learn how to record any of the transaction in a proper way. Accounting is a subject, like you have a subject of chemistry, you have subject of biology, so different subjects are present all over. Every subject has key feature, every subject has ability to let you learn something. Chemistry will tell you how to make chemicals, physics will tell you how to make machines. In the similar meaning, accounting will tell you how to record different transactions. Transaction mean whatever activity, monetary activity you are doing, you need to record them on a paper, on a system, on a software. So under accounting, you will learn how to record different transactions. So then you have heard another accounting, which is financial accounting, and this is purely recording the transaction directly or indirectly associated with amount only. That means you will be sitting in an office where you will be receiving some amounts or you will be paying some amounts, and then you will be recording those transactions. But here what we are going to start is cost accounting, or it may be called management accounting. So why so many accountings? Because every subject has different spectrum, different criterias, different groups. In the similar manner, main subject is accounting, but right now where we are focused is management accounting. It may be called cost accounting. Under management accounting, the accountant will not be working in an office. Accountant will not be working on a table, on a chair, on an AC room. Management accounting is usually directly or indirectly associated with a manufacturing concern. Please repeat these sentences with yourself. Management accountant will be working in a manufacturing concern, where you are producing something, where you are manufacturing something. Let's take an example of a factory, garments factory. You can see over there. Under garment factories, you will see several procedure would be done over in the factory or in the manufacturing process. So management accountant will be associated with the manufacturing concern. I have given you the example of garments factory. Let's say it's a cement factory, or it's a textile factory, it's a mining factory. Wherever you see, when there is something we are going to manufacture, will be related with management accounting. So as we have described it, if it is management accounting, it is directly associated with manufacturing concern. Manufacturing concern normally is concerned with the factory. That is why the first word factory we are using, because we are not sitting in an office, we are not working on the papers, we are directly associated with manufacturing concern, and under manufacturing concern we will produce something. Secondly, second word which we are looking at here is overhead. Overhead are all those expenses which are being incurred in the factory. Overhead means expenses. So now you can see factory overhead means factory expenses. This word is important for us, so we are focusing upon this word separately. Factory overhead is a new term for us. Factory overhead means what you will say these are expenses, but exclusively what you will write is indirect expenses. But the main thing is these are expenses and indirect expenses, but within the factory area or within the manufacturing area, or we can write factory area. That is little better because simple wording you can understand. So factory overhead is indirect expenses but within the factory area, the area where you have where your project is, the area where your machines and plants are present, the area where you are producing something. And within that area, if you are spending some amount indirectly, that would be called factory overhead. For example, you have a canteen in the factory, you have clinic in the factory. Though you are spending your amount in terms of several expenses in canteen, but that canteen is not directly associated with manufacturing concern. Right now, example we have seen is our factory is a garment factory. We have decided it, and in our factory we may have canteen where the employees are coming and they are taking their meals. We may have clinic over there. Employees are coming and taking medicines from there. So this is the very first view where you can understand that factory overhead is associated with expenses, not directly associated with the manufacturing. You are doing same expenses inside the factory area, but these expenses are not for manufacturing concern directly. Other examples we can take, if you have fuel charges in the factory, or if you have gas, coal tar, electric power. These are another way of spending your amount in terms of factory overhead. There is another point of view. If you are paying rent but for factory building. Okay, so these are three aspects where you can easily understand that our factory overhead expense is amount which you are spending upon uh, the amounts or expenses which are happening inside the factory, but they are not directly associated with manufacturing concern. But we are saying, suppose you have paid the rent of factory building. This rent is not helping at all to stitch your garment, to stitch a shirt, to stitch a pant, but this is an important aspect of the factory, important expense of the factory. So please keep your mind and build up a concept of factory overhead. These are expenses which are within the factory area, but they are not directly associated with manufacturing concern. Let's say in garments factory, what could be the direct expenses of factory? Where you are buying your raw cloth, where you are buying needles, where you are buying buttons, where you are buying the thread. These are direct expenses. And now these examples which we have mentioned over here, these are expenses where you can see that there is no direct connection of these expenses with stitching or with manufacturing your shirts or with stitching of your trousers. They are not directly associated. So hopefully you understand that what is factory overhead. And now the third word we are going to see, the third word is variance. Variance is the word which we have taken from variation. When something is variated, you will call it a variance. Let's say within the class you have 20 students. In AF class or in BA class you have 30-40 students. Everyone is student. But when you will ask the names, names would be different. When you will ask their ages, not exactly, but there would be a difference of ages as well. Somebody would be of 20 years, someone would be 19 years, someone would be 20 years 6 months, 20 year 8 months. This means that collectively there is one class, but they are different to each other. Their names are different. First name is A, second name is B. So collectively, what we will call, it's a class, but members of this class is variated from each other. That means they are different in terms of their heights, they are different in terms of their clothing, they are different in terms of their choices, they are different in terms of their moods. So what we will say, they are variated from each other. Another example we can take, if you have your dresses, collectively they will call, we can call it in a collective way that you have 10-15 dresses, but dress of first color may be different to dress a color of second dress, and uh, their their manufacturing is different, or they are variated from each other. So collectively what you are trying to make your mind is, when you see two factors are different to each other, that is called variance. We can write it, variance is when there is difference between two factors. If there is any difference between two factors, that is called variance. Like what we have said, if you have two dresses, one dress color is white, second dress color is black, one is your shalwar kameez dress, second is your pant shirt. So both dresses are different to each other. So there is a difference between two factors, it would be called variance. So let's come to the point, factory overhead variance. Factory means when you are working in a place where you are manufacturing something. Overhead are indirect expenses. Variance means when there is a difference. So collectively what you will understand, if you have any expense in the factory under factory overhead, and these are two different types of expenses, if amount of one expense is different to amount of other expense, what collectively you will call that two expenses are different. The difference would be called factory overhead variance. So what we are saying, there are different types of expenses in the factory under factory overhead heading, and if these two expenses are different with, if these two expenses have some difference, that difference would be considered variance. This was your basic concept, and we will proceed next, and we'll try to elaborate it in advanced level, little advanced level, not much. For that purpose, you will have to understand what different types of factory overhead are present in our factory. The first thing is, let's say for any expense, you want, we are taking example directly. If you want to purchase a book, for example, accounting book you want to purchase, for that purpose, the very first thing which you will do is to see how much the price of that particular book is, and you will be planning about to purchase that book. Let's say the price of that book, you have thought, you have assumed, you have supposed. What words I am using? You have assumed, you have supposed that the price of that book, supposed price, is 1000. It may be, you may call it expected price. assumed, supposed, expected. So the first thing is your plan. You want to buy a book, and obviously before going to bazaar or before going to the market, before going to the shop, you will be planning about how much amount you should have in your pocket. Assumed price of that book is 1000. It may be possible that you will arrange 1000 exactly, or it may be possible that you will be thinking the price fluctuation, or when you will go to the bazaar you may be taking some rickshaw or auto, or you may be buying some petrol for your bike. So actually what you are doing is to making a budget. You are going to buy a book which the price of which you have assumed is 1000, and now you are making the budget of that particular expense. It may be called a spending expense. So for 1000 was the price of book which you have assumed, and you have made the budget of 1200 rupees. These are two different sort of expenses. These are two different sort of thinking. First, you were going to buy the book and assumed price was 1000, and then you have arranged the amount. It would also be called your arranged amount. And then you will be at the market, you will be at the shop, and where what you will be doing when you will buy that book, it may be possible that you will be paying 1050, or it may be possible you will be paying 950, you will be paying 1000 exactly. So price which you are actually paying may be more than that of your assumed price, may be less than that of your assumed price, or may be equal to your assumed price. So what actually you are paying is your actual expense. Here we have three different types of thinking. When you have made a plan, when you have assumed a price, when you have expected a price, you will name it applied. And since, okay, right now what we are trying to understand, there are three words. The first word we have furbished is applied. When there is a price which is just assumed, just supposed, that kind of price would be called applied. And the amount which you have arranged, look at this, arranged amount would be called budget. And the third, which the price actually you are paying, it would remain the same, actual price. And if right now what example we have taken to buy the book, if you are going to pay your rent, if you are going to pay your fuel charges, if you are paying canteen charges, if you are paying expenses of gas, coal tar, electric power, like if you are paying this amount for your factory, if you are paying this amount for your factory expenses, that would be called FH. And if that FH expense is just assumed, you will call it applied FH. So any factory expense which is not actual expense, you have just assumed it, it would be called applied FH. And then you have, if you arranged the amount for factory expense, that would be considered your budget FH. All right, and next, the actual amount which you are paying is actual FH. So expenses, all factory expenses, all indirect expenses of the factory, examples are here. If you have assumed that expense which actually does not happen, you have just an assumption about that expense, you have just supposed, it would be called applied FH. And then uh, amount for that particular expense has been arranged, it would be called budget FH. And lastly, when you have spent that amount, it would be called actual FH. So please remind it yourself and memorize it, all three words: applied FH, budget FH, and actual FH. These are three different types of FH, and beside this there are two more things which you will understand is if some expense is fixed, this would be called fixed FH, and if expense is not fixed, you will call it variable expense or variable FH. Fixed expense would be the type of expense which will not be changed. Even if you are working for 1 day or you are working for 30 days, expense which would not be changed either for 1 day or for month, and if you are working for some 8 hours or you are working for 2 hours, 3 hours, this expense would not be changed. This would be called your fixed FH. Any expense, we have taken examples over here. If expenses are being paid and these expenses are fixed, if you are working for one single day or you are working for whole month, expense is same. If you are working for 8 hours and even if you are not working at all, that expense is same. It would be called fixed FY. Example I was willing to take from your side, you are thinking an expense which is fixed. So example is very straight. If you are paying rent of factory building, this would be called a fixed type of expense. As it is indirect expense of the factory, it would be called FOH. And since the amount of rent is fixed, so collectively it would be called fixed FOH expense. Why it is fixed? If you are working for 3 days, if you are working for 7 days in a factory, if you are running that particular premises for 30 days, or even if you are not working at all, you will have to pay that rent in fixed way. That fixed amount will be paid to the landowner or building owner. It means it's a fixed FH. And variable FH means all expenses inside the factory. They are indirect expenses, but they will vary. As you will increase your production, as you will increase your hours, working hours, that expense would be increased. And here you have given the example of electric power. If you will work more, your electricity bill would be more. If you will be working less, let's say you have worked for full week, full hours. In case of electricity bill, keep it in mind. And if you haven't worked for full week, instead of that you have worked for just 2 or 3 days in a week, the electric power expense now will be different. So if you will work more, expense will be different. If you will work less, expense will be different. This is called variable FOH. And for variable FOH example we have taken is electricity bill. Now important matter is, here example is rent of factory building, which is FOH. Here example is electricity bill, still it's an FOH. So both are FOH, but one expense which is rent is fixed FOH, second expense is variable FOH. Okay, I'm very hopeful that the base of factory overhead variance has been made, and you are requested to please follow these three names: applied FH, which is assumed FH; budget FH, the arranged amount; actual FH means the expense which you are actually doing, or actual amount which is paid is called actual FH. And then you have fixed FH, expense which is indirect expense of the factory, but the amount of that particular expense is fixed. When you are doing some expense with variation, more working more expense, less working less expense, it would be called variable FH. Now these are three different types of, basically three different types, and then we have seen two extra types. Come to the point again. What was our chapter's name? It was factory overhead variance. And what we have said, if there are two types of expense and they are different to each other, variance means variation means change. We have seen over here difference between two factors is called variance. When there are two types of FH and they are different to each other, it would be considered as factory overhead variance. Alright, now come down. Here you have seen applied FH and budget FH and actual FH. These are three different types of FH. When you will calculate any difference between these two or any two, that difference would be considered as variance. For example, if you have budget FH and you have actual FH and there is some sort of difference. For example, budget FH is 10 and actual FH is 12. Obviously, you will say there is a difference between these two amounts. The difference would be considered as the variance. How much variance is here? Budget FH is 10, actual FH is 12, the difference is 2. What does that mean? There is a difference between budget and actual FH. This difference would be called variance. Hopefully you have now came to the point. This would be called variance. So totally the whole scenario was associated with FH variance, and we have decided if there are two types of FH and they are different to each other, it would be called factory overhead variance. We have applied FH one type, budget FH second type, actual FH third type. If you take any two FH from these and they are different to each other, the difference would be called factory overhead variance. Here we have started the actual working would be from here. In your questions you will be doing like this. You will be having two pages from left to right. We have just divided upper part to the lower part, and after this is technically the work which is needed to be done. This is your first variance which you have calculated, and that was between budget FH and actual FH. Technically we will be calling it, now we are giving name, it would be called budget variance. This is your first variance, and if there is difference between budget FH and actual FH, it would be called budget variance. Secondly, you can have applied FH and actual FH. First, you can write actual FH, and this is different. There is difference between actual and applied FH. Second FH which we are taking is applied FH. Again, let's say actual FH is 10 and applied FH is 8. So you can say there is a difference between both FH. How much difference is 2? Let's change it. Instead of 2, we can write it here 7. So there is a difference of 3. This is also be called a variance, but the name of this variance would be changed. We have variance, but what we will call it, not the budget variance, but it would be called, a new name would be given, total variance. So two variances we have discussed. First one was budget variance, and then we have total variance over here. Okay, and I was willing to change it to the capital letters actually. Okay, next is total variance. And please let me know what would be the next variance over here after total variance. There were three FH types, basically three FH. We have seen the difference between applied and actual. We have seen the difference between budget and actual. So what would be the next variance? If you will take the difference between budget FH and applied FH, again there will be a difference between these two. Suppose budget FH is 7. Okay, we can take the same. Budget FH was 10. Okay, and applied FH we have written over here is 7. The difference again arrived, and this difference is 3. We will call it again a variance. At very first stage it is variance, but which variance you will call it? It would be considered as applied variance. So these are three names which we have discussed. First was budget variance, and then it was total variance, and then we are having applied variance. So right now what you will do, you will memorize these three variances, and we are going to discuss few other things as well. For that you need to know whether this variance is favorable or unfavorable. Next target is to understand whether this variance is favorable or unfavorable. You can see here budget is an assumed amount. Suppose budget FH is the planned amount, how much amount you have taken in your pocket to do some expense. In example, we are going back. What we had thought, we were going to purchase a book. Assumed price was 1000, arranged amount was 1200. Arranged amount, how much present actually, how much actual amount was present in your pocket. And actual expenses, the amount of the actual price of the book may be less, maybe more, or maybe equal. So that would be called actual expense. So if there is a difference between these three, that would be called variance. And for budget variance, you are going to decide whether it is favorable or unfavorable. How you will decide it? If, for example, over here, actual expense is more than that of budget. If actual FH is more than budget FH, how will you define it? Whether it is favorable or unfavorable. If actually the amount which you are actually spending is more than that of your budget. Budget is arranged amount which was present in your pocket. The arranged amount was 1000 for your book, but when you have gone to the bazaar, the shopkeeper had said the price of that book is 1200, and you have arranged that amount. How much? 1000. Arranged amount was 1000. Actual price was 1200. You will be happy or sad? Obviously, it's a sad matter. You will be uncomfortable because actual price is more than that of your budget. Then you will call it unfavorable, and vice versa. If actual FH is less than, we are going to change this phenomena, and here what you will do, if actual FH is less than your budget. What does that mean? You have arranged 1000 rupees in your pocket while actual price of that book is 800. Arranged amount in your pocket was 1000. Actual price was 800. You will be happy that book is within your range, and you will not have to go back to arrange more amount. So it would becomes favorable for you. Now take your time, take 2, 3, 4 seconds and learn this procedure. If actual FH is more than your budget, it would be considered unfavorable. If actual FH is less than your budget, it would be considered as favorable. Next is our total variance. So again, we will decide when actual variance would be favorable and when actual FH would be unfavorable for you. So you will be creating idea for that. The variance, total variance, is between actual FH and applied FH. All right. So let's make an idea when total variance would be favorable or unfavorable. Before that, we will be doing applied variance first. It is also called volume variance. We may write it volume variance. And budget variance is also called spending variance. Names are very important. So what I'm saying, spending variance. We are going to write over here. Budget variance, second name is spending variance. Oh my God, Excel is not helping at all. We are actually changing this name. Budget is also called spending variance. And volume variance, here it is called applied variance or volume variance. There are several other names as well, but right now just consider it volume variance or applied variance. Now let me know when volume variance will be favorable or unfavorable. Budget is amount you have arranged, applied was assumed amount. Budget is the amount which you have actually arranged. Now please consider it, if your budget FH is more than applied FH, then what you will do? If your budget is more than that of applied, that means beyond your thinking, what you had assumed, what you have supposed, budget FH is more than that of that application or thinking or assumption, so it would go unfavorable for you. If your budget is more than your applied FH, budget is more than that of your assumption, budget is more than that of your supposed amount, it would be considered unfavorable. And vice versa, if budget is, what you will do, budget is less than applied FH, it would be favorable for you. So second thing has also been completed. Now come to the second variance. Three types of variance we were discussing. First was budget variance, second was total variance, third was applied or volume variance. I think we should have changed in its heading as well. Let's change the heading. It is important sometimes you may having the second variance which we have discussed is total variance. We could change it as well. And the next variance which we have discussed is applied or volume variance, and we can make heading of this as well. Okay, three variances we have discussed: budget variance, volume variance, and total variance. So in this way, what happened? Alright guys, for the time being, what you will do, you will learn these expenses. These three variances you have learned. I don't know why Excel is not working over here. So we can take a break, and during this break what you will do, you will learn everything related to this. What we have done, budget or spending variance. It should be working. I don't know what happened to it. Alright. right guys, we'll have to take break. So for the time being, just learn about budget variance, volume variance and total variance. We will see you again for the calculation of few formulas. I was willing to complete it right now, but unfortunately it's not working right now. Excel has been stuck and don't know what could be the reason. Anyways, we will meet you soon again. For the time being, let's take a break and we'll come back after a short break and we'll complete the remaining formulas. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.